Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the latest episode of the Mulliner and Musgrove Show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and I'm joined by Sam Mulliner. Today, we're going to talk about Sven Botman. The Dutch defender signed a new deal earlier in the week, and we're going to get into what it means for Newcastle United and the centre-back. This is being recorded ahead of Newcastle United's Carabao Cup first leg semi-final match against Manchester City. It's going to be released on Saturday morning, so by then, hopefully, we'll be celebrating no injuries, and a good win for Man City in the Cup. Sam, just briefly, is it going to happen?
Certainly hope so. This first leg is crucial. We have to obviously win it being at home. It's not as ideal as last year when we had the away leg first, because it is beneficial having that second leg at home. Of course it is. And that was the case at Southampton a few years prior, wasn't it? So, yeah, mightily important. Hopefully a win to nil, but it's going to be mightily tough.
It certainly is, but Newcastle have done it before in this competition against sides that no one expected them to beat, and of course against Man City earlier in the season. So hopefully by the time you guys listen to this, we will be celebrating a win in the first leg. Also, for those who are listening to the episode, what you can't see is Sam Mulliner wearing one of these fetching 1995 Adidas Retro Ranges, which has also been released earlier in the week. Sam's came in the post and he's absolutely buzzing. He's also got the 90s haircut to match as well.
No, that's just my haircut. I have a thick head of hair, unlike yourself, which is thinning by the day. But yeah, no, I got the drill top, and I paid the extra couple of quid next day delivery as well, because I'm working away from Wednesday. So I'm working away now when this podcast comes out. So yeah, I'm currently working away in Portsmouth. So I wanted to receive it before I went. So,
It looks big. It looks big.
Yeah, it's oversized. I think when you order it online, it says it's supposed to be sort of oversized and in true 90s style. So I suppose if you don't want it to look as such, I'm guessing there's, I mean, don't take my word for it, but I'm guessing there's scope to size down. But I don't know. But yeah, it's big, it's warm. Yeah, lovely stuff.
And as expected at the time of recording, pretty much everywhere sold out of the retro range. So Adidas and Newcastle clearly know a good thing when it comes to these retro ranges, because everyone just snaps them straight up.
Yeah, and that, I think there's a bit of a trend at the moment, or has been in the last few years, certainly, of sort of retro football kits coming back to the fore, haven't they? So Adidas in particular have cottoned on to that. And yeah, many people like myself have opened their wallets to purchase. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it. It's nice. It's the proper 90s sort of material as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I had a feel of it in the club shop. What I love though is the actual Adidas is written out. I think we've spoken about this before when we've done.
Yes.
I like that.
No logo. It is just proper written on, and there's a little shield around the emblem there as well. So if you can just about make that out. Apologies for the audio, but it's good. It's good.
Yes, very, very nice. Right, on to Sven Botman then. 26 years of age, signed from Lille back in 2022. His deal was expiring in the summer, and Newcastle United and the defender have agreed a new one until 2030. Sam, this was one of the things that was on your wish list. Clearly, the club have listened to you and have got it sorted.
I don't know about that, but it definitely was on my wish list. I was worried. I mentioned last week that the kind of significance of them targeting a left-sided centre back at the time. Obviously, so much has happened since we spoke last week. All things considered, the fact that we were potentially targeting a young sort of left-sided centre half rang alarm bells for me that all might not be well with Sven Botman. But thankfully, he's committed. He's signed on the dotted line 4 more years. 4.5, and it's brilliant. Obviously, the key is keeping him fit. This run of fixtures, where we are now down to the bare bones because of Fabian Schär's injury, is slightly concerning. I'm getting sort of flashbacks to when Steve Bruce ruined Florian Lejeune, if you recall. But hopefully Eddie Howe's playing a bit of Eddie Howe poker with us, and I think a centre half now. I maintain that maybe a right-sided centre half is more important than a left-sided centre half. There's things going on with Lascelles as well, which it would seem that he's no longer wanted, required, however you want to phrase it. So yeah, but not detracting away from Botman. If we keep him fit, he's one of the best centre backs in the league. And when we have had him fit, his first season, when we finished fourth, which still our best placing in the Premier League under Eddie Howe, he was, and I still believe this to be the case, he's the best centre half I've seen in my lifetime at Newcastle.
It's quite the claim. To you guys watch and listen, do let us know if you agree with Sam on that. You mentioned
Shouldn't be a big claim though, have we? We've had some absolute filth.
Okay, I mean, yeah, the Aldice years, some terrible centre backs during those days. Obviously, everyone kind of pinpoints Johnny Woodgate as another. Yeah, of course he's in the conversation. I think the worry is, though, I mentioned Johnny Woodgate. The worry is for some that he ends up being a bit like Johnny Woodgate with the injuries and the fitness, because last season 11 appearances, season before that 22 appearances, first season 44. Thankfully, 17 in all competitions this campaign. So already he's close to equaling or breaking the 23-24 campaign with 22 appearances, and already more than the last season. And it is key, as you said, just to keep him fit. The concern has to be, though, as you mentioned, the run of games coming up, the lack of rotation available for Eddie Howe. I think in an ideal world, you'd probably want to manage him and that fitness a little bit better in terms of giving him time to rest after a game. But as things stand, Botman's going to have to be playing kind of every game for probably the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and like I say, fingers crossed he's come out of the City game unscathed. I think the Wolves game is actually going to be pretty tough now. They've seemed to got into their rhythm a little bit at long last, and such is our luck. We head to Molineux this weekend, so it might not be as foregone conclusion as it would have been a couple of months ago. Having said that, how we found a way to lose at West Ham, I'll never know. And the same can be said against Man United. So it could be a very tricky afternoon at Molineux. But yeah, it's a concern, and that's why I mentioned whether Eddie Howe is playing a bit of Eddie Howe poker, which he's been synonymous for in the past. We heard him earlier in the week musing about PSR, of which I have limited sympathy for him, as we discussed last week, because of the money wasted on his Premier League proven signings, which have so far failed to fire. More to come from Wissa, obviously. What did you make of Wissa and Voltemade the first time? Because we haven't spoken since last week, and as I say, a lot's happened in a short space of time. What did you make of the first outing of Voltemade and Wissa?
Well, I can bet me last penny that we won't have seen it on Tuesday against Man City.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. I thought that it was exactly what it looked like, a new system. Strange as really on the pitch, but I thought Voltemade looked more of a threat and he looked more comfortable, which was the key. Wissa still getting back to full fitness, so you've got to bear that in mind. I think my big concern with that is we're not going to see it again, probably, unless it's kind of break the glass in case of emergency. But then it's never going to hit the ground running, that system, unless it's done over a consistent period of time, which Eddie Howe doesn't seem to want to do. So it's hard to pass a judgment. I don't think it didn't work. I don't think it worked. I think it was just kind of the first time they've used it. And until we see it on a more regular basis, I don't really think you can pass a judgment.
Yeah. Careful you don't get splinters on that fence. But yeah, I think that's sort of fair enough in a way. I think it was a good time to test it out as well in the FA Cup. But it's interesting you say Wissa's not fit. Well, he looked fully fit and flying against Fulham, didn't he? So I don't know how long does it take to get him fully fit. He's been back probably longer than what you think right now. But yeah, of course there is still more to come from him, and we need him to get going and start firing consistently. But obviously Howe has a selection dilemma on his hands now with Voltemada and Wissa, and probably 99% of the time only one will play. So it's always going to be difficult for them both now, I suppose.
I mean, with fitness, I mean match fitness, because there is a big difference between being fit to play but match fit and being able to play 90 minutes and what have you. And I think that's also kind of lends itself to Botman really with the injuries he suffered previously. You know, there's always that kind of risk that you play him for too many games and he breaks down again and something crops up. But as we said, he hasn't really got the option, at least in the next few weeks, to play anyone else unless Lewis Miley comes in. But then who plays at right back? Does he play Trippier? And these are the kind of things that he has got to decide. I mean, just looking at Sven Botman's injury history: ankle, knee, ACL, kneecap, knee, hamstring. Missed a total of 68 games over his time here. Do you look at him now, and we also can only assume that this contract deal has been offered and signed after the medical team have done pretty much, I would imagine, it kind of another medical to say, actually, you are going to get another 4 years out of him at his very best? Because I think there would have been a little bit of a concern from some, given all the injuries, given the recurrence of a knee here or there, that, you know, maybe his best days, even though they're in front of him, maybe they're not attainable because he is so injury prone. Do you think that the injuries are behind him now?
It's impossible to say, isn't it? I mean, for a start, you could make a lot of. I mean, you could make a big case that ACL was severely mismanaged. You could make a case that maybe the injuries have done Newcastle a favour in being able to tie him down, because had he stayed fit, there's a lot of if buts and maybes in this, of course, but had he stayed completely fit and not had injuries, would he still be here anyway? Could have we had an Isak situation with Sven Botman? I think so. And would that have helped maybe put some clubs off? I think so. There are a lot more sort of alternative centre halves from in and around Europe for other clubs to look at, rather than right backs, for example, which is obviously a situation down the line with Livramento, as we sort of glanced over last week. So it is in a weird way to our gain, in that we've got him for these extra years and he's put pen to paper. But of course, that concern of injuries will always be there, like it was with Wilson, like it sort of is now with Livramento. Trippier is probably another one with Father Time ticking. It's the risk and the fear is always going to be there with him, unless he sort of has an injury-free sort of 12 to 18 months, where I'm talking that he barely misses a game, and when he has missed a game, it's due to him being rested, not that he's felt a twinge or, you know, he's got anything minor at all. A sniffle is the only reason that those fears will be allayed. But it's football. This happens, unfortunately, and it happens a lot more often with players than what it should. As I say, that ACL, that's time spent from his ACL was the big kicker. And could we have dealt with that a bit better? I don't know. We will never know the true ins and outs. But from the outside looking in, a lot of people were asking questions.
And we saw in that period just how crucial he was, though, because he came back for the semi-final against Arsenal, didn't he? And how changed up the formation, and he was absolutely key in that game. And obviously, as time went on, the injuries came back. I think it was the other knee that he went down with. But you know, it was just those games where we really saw how important he was, and then you were left sitting back in your chair going, "Wow, we've got such a good defender here." Like, those who describe him as you do as one of the best they've seen weren't surprised. You know, wow, how good he is. And then the injury came back up, and you were just kind of left kicking yourself thinking, are we ever really going to get to see him on a consistent basis? And hopefully we do. Hopefully he's over the injuries, but as you say, you just never know. But you know, is that the kind of game you look at, or the legs you look at against Arsenal, Sam, and you pinpoint this is why Newcastle have wanted to tie him down to 4 more years? Because when he is injury free, when he's on form, there's few better than him.
You can look at that. You can look at that season we finished 4th and how many clean sheets we kept. I would look at that more in particular. And and just to correct you, he's not one of the best centre backs I've seen in Newcastle. He is the best out and out centre back I have seen play. I'm only 36, so I appreciate there are more senior amongst us that have been around and watched Newcastle for a hell of a lot longer than what I have. But certainly in my sort of 30 years following Newcastle, he's the best out and out centre back I've seen play for us. I remember the first time I saw him play for us. It was the pre-season friendly, not long after he'd signed. I was just taken aback of how easy he made everything look, and how laid back he was, and just how efficiently and effectively and simply he dealt with situations. And that carried into the season, and that's why we were so successful in that Premier League season when we did finish fourth, and our defensive record was second to none. And let's not forget Dan Burn, who everyone hates playing left back, was playing left back for the duration of that season. Botman was on the left side of defence helping cover. That they kept a clean sheet at the Emirates on more than one occasion together. It was astronomical. I mean, if you can get back to that, you're well placed to sort of seriously challenge in the Premier League again, because a strong defence gives you such a foundation as to be successful.
What makes him the best defender you've seen?
Well, I say composure, reading the game. Centre halves, unless you're Van der Ven, aren't naturally the quickest of specimens. But he's good in the air. He just ticks all the boxes, and again, he just makes everything look so easy, like nothing's a problem. And you go back and have a look. That season we finished fourth, and see the games where we were so tight defensively, and the places away from home where we kept clean sheets, unheard of at that stage. And yes, I know we've got to look at the future as opposed to the past when it comes with him. And we reiterate that the risk of injuries will always be there. There might be some watching or listening that might be a little bit narked that he's signed a new deal and we haven't gone in to sign anyone else to play with Chow long term. I absolutely fundamentally disagree on every level. I think he's one of our world-class players. And to tie him down was crucial. So, but I understand the caveat that one injury and everyone's got their head in their hands, and it's doomsday again.
We are obviously in the January transfer window, and plenty of speculation about a centre back being needed this month. With everybody fit, so Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, obviously Malik Chow, Sven Botman, and then we'll include another centre back coming in, and that obviously depends on what you're buying. Are you buying someone who complements the squad, or you're buying someone who instantly improves that back line? And I'll let you decide on the answer to that with your answer to this question, Sam. Is Sven Botman number one choice alongside Malik Chow, or does Fabian Schär come back in for, like, and I know he's injured and he's going to be out for the foreseeable, but let's say he was fit, would he come back in partner Schär, partner Chow, or is it a new arrival who would come in and potentially partner maybe Botman or Chow?
I mean, what, in terms of now, or sort of if everyone's fit? And
yeah, if everyone's fit, and then looking ahead.
If everyone's fit, Botman starts, and it's a case of who plays with Botman, not the other way around.
Okay.
So and you would say that it's Botman and Chow. Burn, there's a dilemma there. I get it, because we all want to see Dan Burn make that England squad. And Dan Burn, when playing centre half for us these days, is fantastic, and is a huge threat. But as you say, the caveat to this scenario is everyone fit and firing. Everyone fit and firing Botman is that extra level. And where we need to go in for a centre half, which I think we do. Obviously, Fabian Schär has shown his durability at covering both sides. The next dilemma is what you do with Fabian Schär and whether or not you give him that extra year or whether you go into the transfer market for a right-sided centre-half who can be as durable and provide consistent quality competition for Malik Chow for when Chow makes a little slip here and there like he did against Leeds.
So
And
it sounds
I loved before people start having a go. Yes, it was one poor game, and I loved how Chow took accountability, moved on, and put in a decent enough display on the back of that. So it was box ticking. But this is why you have a squad of players, so you can adapt.
it sounds like you're saying Botman is first choice centre back then.
When everyone is fit and firing, yes.
So essentially,
It's not even close.
So he's part of that core that you build the team around.
Yeah. But again, the if is like we discussed. The if will always be there for a lot of people until he can prove his fitness for over the course of 12, 18 months. But it's going to be difficult to do that.
Is it there for you? Because like what the comfort blanket for me is that, again, this is going to be a big outlay by the club. You imagine he's getting paid well over £100,000 a week. Like, yes, there'll always be that little bit of risk, as there is with any player. It doesn't matter if the player's got a class fitness record. Look at Johan Wissa, for example. Barely got injured at Brentford. Here we go, rocks up for Newcastle, and we don't see him for a few months. There's always going to be that risk. But, they're clever, they're calculated, they'll have done everything possible to make sure that this deal represents the best for Newcastle United. So that gives me some hope that whatever they have done in the background, they're confident enough that they will get the very best out of them for those 4 years.
Yeah, and I would certainly hope that to be the case. Dan Burn, whether he can see out another 4 years, probably not. So there will be us dipping into the transfer market for a left-sided centre-half in the future, which is when the likes of Mathali comes into the equation and whatnot. But as things stand, Burn, is probably a few weeks away. It's rotten luck that they're both injured at the same time. But, there's Dan Burn is... I'm not going to use the word cover because he's not cover. He's fantastic. That's proper sort of squad depth as opposed to cover. There's genuine proper competition there because Dan Burn is an England international centre-back who, at the moment, is odds-on favourite to go to the World Cup. Sven Botman isn't going to go to the World Cup with Netherlands. So there's genuine competition for places there. There's genuine strength in depth. It's one of the areas of the pitch where we are strong. Just it's football. It's naff luck at the moment, and that's what we need to increase over the different areas of the pitch because we've got it in a couple of positions, but not all over.
Just to go back to the secondary question about who's first choice, and it was obviously about the transfer window. I mean, I think we're of agreement Newcastle need to bring in a centre back. Again, let's say everyone is fit and is there to be picked. So Dan Burn, Fabian Schär, Malik Chow, and Sven Botman will not count Kraft or Lascelles in this scenario. What are Newcastle United looking for either this January or in the summer when it comes to that centre back? Again, are they looking for someone who instantly comes in and demands a first team spot, or are they looking for someone who competes, or are they looking for someone who just complements the squad?
You always have to look for someone who competes. You're not in the business of just buying players that are happy to sit on the bench other than sort of goalkeepers, where this is the new fashion to have 20 goalkeepers that are all just happy to be there. Are you edging me to say that it's a replacement for Schär? That, especially with this injury, because I get that you can make a case that he doesn't get an extension depending on how he gets back from this injury, and that he's 34? Is he 34?
He's around there. No, I'm not edging you to say that. I mean, if that's your opinion, you want to share it, then by all means. I'm just trying to get a feel for where you are in terms of that centre back addition. And to you guys watching and listening, please share in the comments. I mean, the other option as well is a youngster with mass potential to be a first member in a few years' time. It's just interesting because I think if you ask people about the priority, this January, centre-back will come up, but then as you've alluded to, it will be split between either right-sided or left-sided. So I'm just trying to get kind of your view on what you think or which side they should be going for and what kind of player it is in terms of instant impact, future impact, middle of the road impact.
Well, I think we'll go young. I think that's an almost certainty that we'll go young. There are plenty of good young centre backs out there. How much do you want to spend is the question, and what's value for money. Obviously, when you're buying young, that deal can amortise, and you spread out the costs when you're dealing with PSR and all that guff. The problem is if you're going for a player who's looking to take their career to the next level, they initially don't then want to start being on the bench for 6 months whilst Botman and Thiaw hopefully sort of doing very, very well and just playing the odd cup game here and there. But I do think we'll go young. I don't know whether I'm ready to say goodbye to Fabian Schär yet. I don't know. It is a real sort of I don't know. I don't think I'm ready. Obviously his days as outright first choice are over. I suppose in essence they are, but an injury or two and he's still playing 20-25 games a season, and that's fine. How long do you give him? Does he retire at Newcastle? Is he ready to? Could he go and? I mean, he could probably go and play in the Saudi league for a couple of 3 years yet. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm ready to say farewell to Fabian Schär yet. But that's the dilemma. There is still a lot of deadwood in the squad. I wouldn't put Fabian Schär in that bracket whatsoever. And that will be the case in the summer as well. So it's a big decision. I think there's scope to sign a new centre back and still keep Fabian Schär, but then his playing time will obviously be impacted.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know you're a fan of Diamande over at Sporting. He's young. He's 22. Best years ahead of him, but price tag of 87-90 million pounds according to some reports. So
what?
I've just had a little look there. That's the balance, isn't it? That's the kind of the dilemma you have as a transfer man at Newcastle United when it comes to centre backs, because right now you have Malik Thiaw and Sven Botman who have really impressed, and we're going to look forward to seeing that partnership going forward. And I think for many that will be the ideal partnership if both can stay fit and in form. But then you are shopping in the market, and like you say, you should always look to improve and better your squad. But a youngster could be an option. But then is it a youngster who costs the best part of 100 million quid and it isn't guaranteed first team football? It's a horrible dilemma to face, really.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be spending that much on Diamande. The three we said in the summer when we did our transfer special shows were Diamande, Scalvini, of course, before he was eventually linked, which I read on the Chronicle website. Interest has cooled; it's been tempered. And Zabani, who's obviously since moved to PSG. I don't think he's having a particularly tremendous time of things. So yeah, there are still plenty of good young centre halves in and around Europe, but it's like I say, it's one of them where their expectations of having their career developed and trying to keep everyone sort of happy whilst playing a back four. Do you look at maybe someone in the Emil Kraft mould who could fill in at centre back and right back? Do you do that, or do you go down the path of someone who can cover right and left back as well? Because the wing back placings need cover too. Let's not forget that.
I wouldn't mind a cheeky little bid for Marcos Senesi at Bournemouth. Now he's 28, so he's the total other end to what we're saying. But I don't think he'd cost that much. He's proven to be a really solid Premier League footballer. I think he would complement the squad. Does he instantly impact the back four? No, he doesn't. He's not better than Bottom, and he's not better than Chow. But I don't think he's not way off them. And I think, if you're putting all your money on Botman and Chow being fit and firing, and they're going to form a great partnership, then maybe you do look to someone who's got that experience, isn't going to cost that much, and has maybe different priorities for their kind of footballing career. I mean, obviously at 28, you still want to be playing first team football and you'd be pushing them all the way. But maybe is that a path you go down potentially?
He's better than Kraft, so he improves the squad, I guess. If you're making that argument, 28 is your peak years, really, isn't it? So, but considering how many games we play and how competitive we've been in every competition, sort of minus the FA Cup, although we're through this time. There's plenty of games to be had, so it certainly wouldn't be damaging. And as I say, he's better than Kraft, so I guess he improves the squad. But it's one of them. You touting players that aren't necessarily available, that aren't gonna be cheap. So it depends on availability and whether they're up for a move, I guess. But I can't see anything sort of that way happening this month.
Yeah, definitely not this month. I think, as we said last week, it most likely would be a youngster or two. Sven Botman, upon signing his new deal, said, "I'm really happy to sign this contract. The club has given me so much in the last 3.5 years. I've grown as a person and as a player here. I feel like I have so much more to give in the long term. That's why both parties are really happy with this decision. I'm looking forward to what's coming in the future." Eddie Howe added, "We're delighted that Sven has committed his long-term future to the club. He's been an outstanding player for us since he joined. I firmly believe there's more to come from him. Sven has a strong mentality and work ethic, which is clear every time he trains or plays. We value his presence on and off the pitch. I'm really pleased to see his long-term future secured." And Sporting Director Ross Wilson said, "Sven is not only an important player on the pitch, but also a top professional and hugely respected member of our squad. With Sven's previous contract due to expire at the end of the season, it's fantastic we've secured his future here. I know Eddie and the players are equally thrilled. Sven feels settled in Newcastle, both in the city and within our squad, and we're all excited to continue with them in our ranks." So everyone very happy and over the moon, as you'd expect with this contract. What does the future hold for Sven Botman? Sam, you mentioned there the World Cup. He's not going to get in the squad for Holland. So does he have to aim for the next tournament?
Yeah, I think so. And competition is fierce. By the way, big tick in the box for Ross Wilson. Big tick in the box for Ross Wilson getting this done. But yeah, there's a lot of good young centre backs in the Netherlands at the moment, emerging talents as well. You would say this would probably be Van Dijk's last World Cup. So there's a place there to be had, but there's going to be plenty of other players eyeing up that role. But from sort of next season, that will be where his ambitions lie, I'm guessing. And regular football at Newcastle, regular good performances at Newcastle. Hopefully, regular European football continues at Newcastle. That can only be beneficial to him and his chances of getting an international recall, because he was there or thereabouts, wasn't he, before these injury foibles started. So it would certainly be a natural progression to head back to that.
Yeah, certainly so. And just a reminder, ladies and gents, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box to get a discount offer on your NordVPN plan. No risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. One subscription can be used across 10 devices. Sam, just to sign off then, just sum up your joy, I guess, that Sven Botman has extended his stay on Tyneside. Is it a signal of intent from Newcastle?
Yeah, I think so, because we could have been in a position let's imagine this hasn't happened and we're staring down the barrel of a Sven Botman exit. You could have been looking at players who were sort of sold the dream at the start of the takeover, who have since followed the Swedish chap out the exit door, and there would be question marks. There would be sort of frailties happening. There are a couple of little questions still that remain, but hopefully things are certainly in resolution now that there seems to be genuine stability in the club, apart from the under-21s, of course, which is a ever meandering minefield. But there's rumours circulating about training grounds and this, that, and the other. So things are starting to sort of get back on track, and things are happening that we were maybe promised is the wrong word, but that we were led to believe that we're going to be enhanced. So the fact that Botman has signed, and hopefully now he can put injury woes behind him, firmly behind him, and he can get back to being that world-class centre-half operator that we saw in that fantastic season when we finished 4th, and get back to having a really solid defensive unit, because since his injuries, that's when we've looked a little bit lax at the back. And it's no coincidence. He's a huge cog in that defensive wheel of Newcastle United. So it's tremendous news. It's always good news when big players sign new contracts at your club. There hasn't been any murmurings of release clauses either, which is nice, because that was where we were sort of heading as well. Whenever players, not just at our club, but any in the Premier League and in around Europe, when they sign new contracts, you think, well, hang on, what's the release clause? What's the catch? What's the catch to all this? So, look, it's positive, it's great, so long as we can keep him fit, because that is the huge key to a very special talent.
Yes, well, keeping everything crossed that Sven Botman does indeed stay injury-free, because as Sam said there, very special player. And if you can get a run of games and months of injury-free football, then we will see the very best of him. And of course, Newcastle will benefit from that. Thanks, Sam, for sharing his viewpoint on Botman's new deal. Do check out the match preview and view from the opposition ahead of Sunday's game with Wolves. Me and Sam will be back very soon to discuss the hot burning topic of Newcastle United.